podcast. And yeah, we've got another good one here today. And I'm also realizing as I set this up and I looked at the last couple of podcasts, I have like a couple, it's like turned into that time of the year where it gets like it's cold. And so I have like two or three, maybe even four black hoodies. Yeah. And so it looks like I'm wearing the same thing in every video. Anyways, today, I think I've told you in the past, I have been writing an article and that like kind of spawns the topic and the conversation. And so I'm going to hope that I can get through this. I have, this hit me today. This hit me this morning. So I was sitting there this morning with my partner, Dan, and just like as we normally do every single morning, on the couch, we had our coffee. I was finishing pulling my cards for the day. And one of the cats had come up and was sitting there, and we were both kind of petting the cat. And my mind started to wander in that moment. And it wandered to this place where I thought about like what a bummer it was when I was a kid that I didn't get to have cats, right? Because I love kitties so much. And my mom was allergic, so we just weren't going to have them in the house. But we did have a dog. And so I thought about my dog growing up. And all of a sudden, I had no idea like why this would, I mean, I kind of know why this comes up, but my childhood dog comes up and her name was Coco. And this dog I loved and adored so much. Like, loved and adored so much. And in this exact moment, my body started to respond, my chest tightened a little bit, and I felt this sensation that I now realize was my nervous system preparing to show me something that I expected but might not have been ready to see. I had this memory rise with complete clarity, as if it had been just waiting, for this moment, right? For this perfectly timed synchronistic moment. What I remembered was around 10 or 11 years old. My father had a habit of threatening to get rid of Coco whenever he was angry or irritated. There wasn't one single event, there was just this like cascade of visions that showed up. But it was a pattern that stuck out to me. And that's, I think, why it came up this morning. It would happen anytime that we may have procrastinated on cleaning up the backyard or doing something that we needed to do with her, giving her a bath. Um, it would happen anytime that she was allowed to go run free in the house and she was not supposed to be left upstairs. And let's be real, sometimes it would just happen because of the chaos that children brought to the table, right? This threat in and of itself became this ritual in our home. It was used to establish his sense of control and what I'm sure would say his peace. But what I remember most wasn't the words, it was this atmosphere, the way my body would tense before he would even finish speaking. The moment I could see the red in his face and see the emotions the anger start to rise in him. Every bit inside of me would begin to freeze and start to calculate how I could fix whatever had gone wrong, or just how I could quickly get out of the situation as fast as possible so I didn't have to be there. The reality is Coco was not simply a pet. She was my best friend. She was the only person in my life at that time that I ever trusted with my tears, my fears, my secrets. She was the only place that I didn't feel judged for just being me. To have her use as leverage was devastating in a way that I never had the language for as a child. I've now come to realize that it was psychological warfare. It was emotional manipulation. It was abuse. As a matter of fact, that abuse taught me at a very young age that love could be threatened. that safety could be conditional, and that affection was something you could lose if you didn't perform correctly. I responded by becoming quiet, compliant, and hyper aware of my father's emotions at any time. This translated into me becoming aware of other people's emotions too. Not just because they had them, but because I could feel them, right? As a witch that has psychic gifts, I could feel those emotions. I carried all of this into conflict, how I recognized conflict, how I dealt with conflict. I carried it in how I interpreted people's tone or the criticism. I lived as though the next emotional misstep that I make could cost me something precious. This morning, when I felt that memory come back, I cried. I've cried like 3 times today about this. Not because I was shocked by it, but because I finally could understand it differently. I could finally face it. I was willing to process it. Emotional manipulation like this rarely gets talked about. People often imagine abuse as something physical or very dramatic. But the truth is, this constant threat of losing the one being, the one creature who gave me comfort, was its own form of violence. It left scars that are invisible but deeply embedded, that I'm still working through today. It shaped my nervous system to expect loss and punishment just for being a child, just for being who I was. It taught me that the things I love exist at the mercy of somebody else's moods. As I cried this morning, I thought about how the younger version of me must have felt in those moments. How afraid she must have been. She made mistakes. She didn't want to clean up the mess in the backyard the dog made. I mean, who would want to? This was just me being a child. And instead of guidance or compassion or understanding or patience, I received fear. She received fear. I felt so much grief for that version of me who believed that something was wrong with her every single time my father made those threats. I also felt a wave of pride for how strong she had been. She found a way to cope with something that she should not have had to. Even if coping meant whispering secrets into her dog's fur or swallowing her feelings just to keep the peace. One of the most unexpected gifts of recovery is the way that it makes space for the memories you did not know were still inside of you. When we stop numbing our bodies, they begin to speak. They release things slowly in layers, always timed with our ability to handle them. I've had a lot of memories surface throughout my healing journey, but this one just struck me differently this morning. It felt like a part of my soul was knocking on the door and asking to be acknowledged. In the past, in active addiction, I would have pushed the feeling down, I would have dismissed it. But today, I've just let myself sit with it. I told my partner what was happening. I shared this whole memory with him. I let myself be witnessed. I allowed the tears to move through me instead of me choking them back or running away and hiding. In that moment, I became aware of how much my life has changed. My younger self never had the safety to cry openly. Never. She never had someone listening with compassion instead of anger. She never dreamed that she could build a life where her emotions would be seen as valid instead of inconvenient. That realization softened something inside of me. It showed me the distance between the world that I grew up in and the world that I have built right here and now. It reminded me that I'm not trapped in those patterns anymore and I can respond differently. I can choose different people. I can choose to be myself. As witches in recovery, we understand that healing is not linear. It comes in spirals. It returns us to the earlier parts of ourselves so we can gather the pieces that we left behind. When memories like this surface, it is almost never random. It's a sign that the internal conditions are just right, that the body is ready, that the spirit is ready, that the heart is ready. That's what it felt like for me today, a moment of readiness, a clearing, a chance to bring compassion to an experience that shaped me in painful ways for decades. I felt the memory not as something meant to hurt me, but as something meant to free me. I felt the universe showing me that I had reached a point where I could look at this without collapse, without reverting to old patterns, without losing myself in the fear. That's what deep recovery does. It strengthens the foundation so the past can be revisited safely. It turns survival strategies into wisdom. It helps us reclaim parts of ourselves we once disconnected with just to survive. If you're listening to this and you have moments where old memories surface unexpectedly, I don't want you I want you to know. I don't want you to think that you're flawed because you're not. I don't want you to be afraid either. This is part of the process. When the body is finally safe enough, it begins to release what it once held incredibly tightly to. These memories come forward not to punish you, but to liberate you. They come forward because your healing has created the space. You're not going backwards. You're not losing progress. You're not failing at recovery. You're expanding. You're integrating. You're becoming whole. Every time a memory surfaces, you have an opportunity to respond differently than what you once would. You get to offer yourself the compassion you never received. You get to rewrite the story inside your body. You get to see the younger version of yourself with clearer eyes and a gentler heart. Healing asks us to witness what was once unbearable. Recovery gives us the tools to do so. And our witchcraft, that gives us the spiritual framework to understand these moments as sacred acts of reclamation rather than signs of weakness. You deserve to remember. You deserve to release these. You deserve to heal in your own time and in your own way. I promise. It might feel hard when it happens, but there is absolutely beauty on the other side. Much love from me to you. Until next time, my dear friends.